Daniel carried Vela through the airlock and into the Starlight Drifter. The ship was shaking from weapons fire as Lavra fought to keep the pirates away. He sealed the door behind them and ran toward the cockpit. "We have the survivor," he said into his communicator. "Get us out of here." Lavra did not need to be told twice. The moment Daniel reached the cockpit, she pushed the engines to full power. The Starlight Drifter jumped forward, leaving the burning transport and the pirate ships behind. But the pirates were not ready to give up. 3 of their fighters turned to chase them. Energy blasts struck the rear shields, making the whole ship shake. "Shields are at 60%, Lavra reported. "We cannot take many more hits." Daniel placed Vela in a passenger seat and strapped her in. "Stay here and hold on tight." He took his place at the pilot controls and began flying defensive patterns. The Starlight Drifter twisted and turned through space, while Lavra returned fire with the rear cannons. One of the pirate ships took a direct hit and fell back with smoke pouring from its engines. "2 left," Lavra said. Daniel checked the navigation computer. They were close to a jump point that would take them far from this area. If they could reach it, the pirates would not be able to follow. 20 seconds to jump point, he announced. The pirates fired everything they had. 1 blast got through the weakened shields and struck the hull. Warning lights flashed across the control panels. Something in the cargo bay was on fire. 10 seconds, Lavra counted down. Another blast hit them. Then another. Daniel kept the ship steady, pushing toward the jump point with everything the engines had. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. The stars stretched into lines of light as the Starlight Drifter jumped away. The pirates disappeared behind them, unable to follow. Daniel let out a long breath. They were safe. For now, he turned to check on their passenger. Vela was still strapped in her seat, her small hands gripping the armrests. Her silver eyes were wide, but she was not crying. She was trying to be brave. "Are you hurt?" Daniel asked gently. Vela shook her head. "No, I'm okay." Lavra came over and knelt beside the girl. "You did very well. That was scary, but you stayed calm." "My mother says a princess must never show fear," Vela said quietly, "even when she feels it." Daniel and Laura exchanged a look. This child had just watched everyone she knew die, and she was still trying to follow her mother's lessons. It broke Daniel's heart a little. "It is okay to be scared," he told her. "Everyone gets scared sometimes." "Even me." Vela looked at him with surprise. "You were scared? But you fought all those pirates." "I was very scared," Daniel admitted. "But I did it anyway, because you needed help." Over the next several days, they traveled through empty space towards Cytherian territory. They could not contact the Cytherian authorities directly because the pirates might be listening for their signal. They had to take a longer route through systems that were rarely traveled at first. Vela was quiet and watchful. She had been taught that humans were dangerous creatures from a deadly world. Story said that humans were violent and could not be trusted. She kept her distance from Daniel and Lara, eating her meals alone and speaking only when necessary. But as time passed, she began to notice things. She noticed how Daniel always made sure she had food before he ate. She noticed how Lara checked on her at night to make sure she was comfortable. She noticed that they never raised their voices or acted threatening in any way. On the 3rd day, Vela finally asked the question that had been bothering her. "Why did you save me? You do not know me. You could have kept flying and been safe." Daniel thought about the question for a moment. "Because it was the right thing to do. On my world, we believe that you should help people when they need it. It does not matter who they are or where they come from. Even if they are your enemy? You are not my enemy," Daniel said with a smile. "You are just a kid who needed help." Viola was quiet for a while after that. Then she asked Daniel to tell her about Earth. He told her about blue oceans and green forests. He told her about cities full of millions of people and small villages where everyone knew each other. He told her about his family, his parents who still lived in a small town, and his sister who worked as a teacher. Laura taught Vela simple human games to pass the time. They played card games and word puzzles. Vela laughed for the first time when she finally beat Laura at a matching game. "You are not what I expected," Vela admitted one evening. "The stories about humans are very different from what I see. Stories are not always true," Laura said. "Sometimes people tell stories to make others afraid. Fear is a powerful tool." On the fifth day, trouble found them again. A pirate ship appeared on their sensors. It was larger than the ones before, a command vessel. Someone had told them which direction the Starlight Drifter was traveling. "They found us," Laura said grimly. Daniel began evasive maneuvers, but the pirate ship was faster. It closed the distance quickly, weapons charging. This was not a ship they could fight. It was too big and too powerful. "We need to jump again," Daniel said. "Find us an exit point." Laura searched the computer. "There is one, but it is right past their firing line. We will have to fly straight toward them." "Do it." The Starlight Drifter turned and accelerated toward the pirate vessel. Weapons fire filled the space around them. Daniel flew with all his skill, dodging and weaving between the blasts. One shot got through. It struck the cockpit section, and Daniel felt something hit his shoulder. Pain exploded through his arm. He looked down and saw blood soaking his shirt, but he did not stop. He kept flying, kept pushing toward the jump point. Vela screamed his name. Laura was shouting something about his wound. Daniel ignored all of it. He reached the jump point and activated the drive with his good hand. The stars stretched again, and they were gone. Only then did Daniel let go of the controls. His vision was getting dark around the edges. He could hear Vela crying somewhere nearby. "I promised," he whispered. "I promised I would get you home." Then everything went black. Daniel drifted in and out of consciousness. He was aware of voices and movement around him, but he could not focus on any of it. Sometimes he heard Laura talking. Sometimes he heard Vela crying. The pain in his shoulder came and went like waves on a beach. Laura had done what she could. She stopped the bleeding and bandaged the wound, but Daniel needed proper medical care. The blast had damaged muscle and bone. Without surgery, he might lose the use of his arm entirely. "How much longer?" Vela asked. She had not left Daniel's side since he collapsed. "We will reach your space in a few hours," Laura said. "Can you remember the emergency code your guards used? Something that will tell your people we are friends?" Vela nodded and gave Laura a series of numbers and words. It was a royal distress code, known only to members of the ruling family. Laura programmed it into the communication system and began broadcasting. The response came almost immediately. A cold voice demanded they identify themselves and explain why they were using the royal code. "My name is Laura Bennett," she said. "I am a human pilot. We have Princess Vela aboard our ship. She was rescued from a pirate attack. We are bringing her home." There was a long silence. Then the voice said, "Maintain your course. You will be escorted to the homeworld. Any hostile action will result in your destruction." Moments later, warships appeared around them. Large Cytharian cruisers with weapons pointed directly at the Starlight Drifter. Laura kept her hands visible and made no sudden movements. She understood that the Cytharians saw them as a threat. The escort brought them to the Cytharian homeworld. It was a beautiful planet with purple oceans and silver clouds. Great cities floated above the surface, connected by bridges of light. Under different circumstances, Laura would have been amazed by the sight. They were directed to land on a platform near the royal palace. Armed soldiers surrounded the ship before the engines even stopped. Laura could see their weapons through the cockpit window. Stay close to me, she told Vela. Let me do the talking. The airlock opened, and soldiers rushed inside. They wore armor that gleamed like mirrors and carried weapons that hummed with energy. At their head was a tall Cytherian with scars on his face and cold eyes. This was Commander Zethros, the head of the Royal Guard. He pushed past Laura and searched the ship with his eyes. When he saw Vela standing unharmed, something in his expression changed. Relief, perhaps, or disbelief. Princess, he said, dropping to one knee. We thought you were dead. The transport's wreckage was found. There were no survivors. I survived because of them, Vela said, pointing to Laura. They saved me from the pirates. They protected me. Zethros looked at Laura with suspicion. Humans were not trusted here. Everyone knew that. But the princess was alive and unharmed. He could not simply ignore that fact. Where's the other one? He asked. Our sensors showed 2 life forms aboard. He is injured, Laura said. He needs medical help. He was wounded protecting the princess from the pirates. Zethros ordered his soldiers to search the ship. They found Daniel lying on a makeshift bed in the crew quarters. He was pale and sweating, barely conscious. The bandages on his shoulder were soaked with blood. He refused treatment, Laura explained. He wanted all our medical supplies used for the princess. He said her safety was more important than his own. For a moment, Zethros seemed uncertain. This did not match the stories he had heard about humans. They were supposed to be selfish and violent. They were supposed to care only about themselves. Take him to the medical center, Zethros ordered. Keep him under guard at all times. The soldiers lifted Daniel carefully and carried him off the ship. Vela tried to follow, but Zethros stopped her. Your mother is waiting, princess. She has been very worried. I want to stay with Daniel, Vela said firmly. He saved my life. I will not leave him. You must see the queen first. Those are my orders. They were taken to the throne room of the royal palace. It was a vast chamber with walls of crystal and floors of polished stone. Thousands of lights floated near the ceiling like captured stars. And at the far end, sitting on a throne of silver and gold, was Queen Merethis. She was tall and beautiful in the way that a blade is beautiful. Her eyes were sharp and cold, and her face showed no emotion as she watched them approach. She had ruled the Cytherian Empire for nearly 50 years. She had seen wars and plagues and betrayals. Nothing surprised her anymore. But when Vela ran forward and threw herself into her mother's arms, the queen's expression changed. For just a moment, she looked like any mother who had almost lost her child. She held Vela tightly and closed her eyes. I thought I had lost you, she whispered. The humans saved me, Vela said. Daniel and Laura, they fought the pirates and protected me. The queen looked up at Laura, who stood alone in the center of the throne room. Guards watched from every direction. One wrong word, and Laura knew she would be dead before she hit the floor. You are human, the queen said. It was not a question. Yes, your majesty. And you expect me to believe that you rescued my daughter out of kindness? That you want nothing in return? I expect nothing, Laura said calmly. My partner saw a ship in trouble and chose to help. That is all. The queen studied her for a long moment. Then she turned to Commander Zethros. Where is the other human? The one who boarded the transport? In the medical center, your majesty. He is badly wounded. When he is stable, bring him to the holding cells. I want to question him myself. Mother, no, Vela protested. He is a hero. He protected me with his own body. You cannot treat him like a criminal. I will decide what he is, the queen said coldly. Until then, he will wait. We have much to discuss, daughter, about what really happened out there. Laura was taken away by guards. She did not resist. She knew that fighting would only make things worse. Daniel was alive, and that was what mattered. Everything else could be sorted out later. She just hoped Daniel would survive long enough for the truth to come out. The cargo ship Starlight Drifter moved slowly through the empty space between star systems. Inside the cockpit, Daniel Carter checked his navigation screens, while his co-pilot Laura Bennett handled the communications equipment. They had been flying together for 3 years now, carrying supplies to distant colonies and space stations. It was supposed to be a quiet run. Pick up medical supplies from one station, deliver them to another, collect payment, and move on to the next job. Simple work for simple people, Daniel always said. He was not a soldier or a hero. He was just a man trying to make an honest living among the stars. Laura suddenly sat up straight in her chair. Her fingers moved quickly across her console as a sound filled the cockpit. It was a distress signal, weak but clear. "We have something," Laura said. "A ship in trouble. They are broadcasting an emergency code." Daniel frowned and looked at the location data. The signal was coming from a point close to Cytherian territory. The Cytherians were a powerful alien species who ruled a large empire. They were known for their distrust of humans. Most human pilots avoided their space entirely. "Can you tell what kind of ship it is?" Daniel asked. Laura worked at her console for a moment. "Small vessel. Transport class. The signal shows it is a royal ship." "Royal?" Daniel repeated. "What is a royal ship doing out here alone?" Before Laura could answer, another set of signals appeared on their screens. Multiple ships were surrounding the transport. Their weapon systems were active. Daniel recognized the energy signatures immediately. "Pirates. They are attacking the transport," Laura said. Her voice was tight with worry. "The royal ship has almost no shields left. They will breach it in minutes." Daniel sat in silence for a moment. This was not his fight. The Cytherians hated humans. If he got involved, he could be accused of attacking their royal vessel himself. It could start an incident between species. The smart thing to do was to keep flying and pretend they never saw anything. But someone on that ship was going to die if he did nothing. "How many pirates?" he asked. "4 ships. Small fighters. Fast but not heavily armored." Daniel reached for the control stick. "Set weapons to active. We are going in." Laura did not argue. She simply nodded and began preparing the ship for combat. They had faced pirates before, though never this many at once. The Starlight Drifter was not a warship, but Daniel had made modifications over the years. Extra shield generators. A pair of military-grade cannons he had bought from a retired naval officer. The ship could hold its own in a fight if it had to. They dropped out of their travel speed and appeared near the battle. The pirate ships had surrounded the small Cytherian transport. Smoke and debris floated from holes in its hull. The pirates were preparing boarding craft. Daniel opened fire without warning. His first shot struck the nearest pirate ship and tore through its thin armor. The ship exploded in a flash of light. The other pirates turned in confusion, trying to locate this new threat. "Keep them busy," Daniel told Laura. "I am going to board the transport and find any survivors." "Alone?" Laura asked. "Someone has to fly this ship. Just keep shooting until I get back." He grabbed the weapon from the storage locker and made his way to the airlock. The Starlight Drifter pulled alongside the damaged transport while Laura continued to exchange fire with the pirates. Daniel sealed his suit and crossed the gap between the ships. Inside the transport, the air was thin and filled with smoke. Emergency lights painted everything in a red glow. Daniel moved through the corridors with his weapon raised. He found bodies along the way. Cytherian guards who had died defending their ship. He counted at least 8 of them. The pirates had already sent a boarding party. Daniel could hear them moving through the ship, searching for something. or someone. He followed the sounds until he found them. 3 pirates stood outside a sealed door, trying to cut through it with plasma torches. They were laughing and talking about the ransom they would collect. Daniel did not give them a chance to notice him. He fired 3 times, and all 3 fell to the ground. He stepped over their bodies and examined the door. Someone had locked it from inside. "Hello?" he called out. "My name is Daniel. I am here to help." The pirates are gone. There was silence for a long moment. Then a small voice answered. "Are you human?" "Yes," Daniel said. "I am. Humans are dangerous," the voice said. It sounded young. A child, perhaps. Daniel lowered his weapon and placed it on the ground where it could be seen. "I just want to help. I heard your distress signal. My ship is outside. I can take you somewhere safe." The door opened slowly. Behind it stood a young Cytherian girl. She had pale blue skin and large silver eyes that were filled with fear. She wore clothes that were clearly expensive. A princess, Daniel realized. "They killed everyone," she whispered. "All my guards, everyone." Daniel knelt down to be at her level. "I am sorry, but you are safe now. I will not let anyone hurt you. Why would you help me?" The girl asked. "Your people and my people are not friends." Daniel smiled gently. "That does not matter. That does not matter. You needed help. That is enough." The ship shook as an explosion struck somewhere nearby. Laura's voice came through his communicator. "Daniel, more pirates just arrived. We need to leave now." Daniel held out his hand to the princess. "Will you trust me?" She looked at him with those large silver eyes. She was afraid. She had every reason to be. But something in his face must have convinced her, because she reached out and took his hand. "My name is Vela," she said quietly. "Nice to meet you, Vela. Now hold on tight. We have to run." Together, they moved through the damaged ship toward the airlock. Behind them, more pirate fighters were arriving. The battle was far from over, and Daniel knew the hardest part was still ahead. But he had made a promise. He would get this girl home safely, no matter what it took. The medical center of the Cytherian Palace was the finest in the Empire. Doctors worked on Daniel for hours, repairing the damage to his shoulder. The wound had been worse than Larva realized. A few more hours without treatment, and he would have lost his arm. A few hours after that, he would have lost his life. When Daniel woke up, he was in a small room with metal walls and a heavy door. A holding cell. His shoulder was wrapped in clean bandages, and the pain had faded to a dull ache. That was good. But the armed guards standing outside his door were not so good. He did not panic. He knew this might happen. The Cytherians had no reason to trust a human who appeared out of nowhere with their princess. He would have been suspicious to Dot in another part of the palace. Queen Merethis was questioning Laura. The room was small and empty, except for 2 chairs and a table. Laura sat calmly while the queen walked in circles around her. "Tell me again," the queen said. "Why did you respond to the distress signal?" "Because someone needed help," Laura answered. It was the same answer she had given 3 times already. Humans do not help others without expecting something in return. What do you want? Money? Trade agreements? Political favors? Laura looked directly at the queen. "We want nothing." Daniel heard the signal, saw the pirates attacking, and made a choice. He chose to help. That is the entire story. "Impossible," the queen said. "No one risks their life for strangers, especially not for a species that has been hostile to them. With respect, Your Majesty, you do not know humans very well." The queen stopped walking. For a moment, anger flashed in her eyes. No one spoke to her that way. But then the anger faded, replaced by something else. Curiosity, perhaps. "We shall see," she said quietly. We shall see what the truth really is. The Queen spent the next 2 days investigating. She ordered her technicians to examine the Starlight Drifter's computers. They recovered recordings of the battle, communications logs, and navigation data. Everything matched Laura's story. The humans had been traveling through neutral space when they detected the distress signal. They had turned toward danger, not away from it. She watched the battle recordings carefully. She saw the human ship attack the pirates without hesitation. She saw Daniel cross between the ships and enter the damaged transport. She saw him find her daughter hiding in that storage room. But it was the later recordings that affected her the most. The ship's internal cameras had captured everything. They showed Daniel making sure Vela ate before he did. They showed Laura teaching the princess simple games. They showed Daniel telling Vela stories about his home and his family. And they showed the final battle. The moment when the pirate blast struck the cockpit. The moment when Daniel threw himself between the energy and her daughter. The moment when his blood sprayed across the control panels. He had shielded Vela with his own body. He had taken a wound that should have killed him. And then he had kept flying, kept pushing towards safety, until the very last second. The Queen sat alone in her chambers, watching that moment over and over again. She did not understand. How could a human, a creature from that violent and dangerous world, show such selflessness? Such courage? Meanwhile, Vela found a way to visit Daniel in his cell. She bribed a guard with a piece of jewelry and slipped through the corridors at night. When she appeared at his door, Daniel smiled weakly. "You should not be here," he said. "If your mother finds out, you will be in trouble." "I do not care," Vela said stubbornly. She sat down outside his cell, close enough to talk through the bars. "How is your shoulder?" "Better." "Your doctors are very skilled. My mother thinks you are a spy. She thinks you planned everything to gain favor with the Empire." Daniel laughed softly. "That would be a very complicated plan. Get shot, almost die, and hope everything works out. Not very clever." Vela did not laugh. "She is afraid. She's been queen for a long time, and she has seen many people try to deceive her. She does not trust easily." "I understand," Daniel said. "I would be suspicious too. But I am not a spy, Vela. I am just a cargo pilot who made a choice." "I know," Vela said. "I told her that. I told her you are a good person. But she wants proof." "There is no proof I can give her," Daniel said. "Either she believes me or she does not. I cannot change what she thinks." Vela reached through the bars and took his hand. Her small fingers were cold against his skin. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saving me. For everything." "You are welcome, little one. I would do it again." On the third day, Commander Zethros came to Daniel's cell with news. The Queen had finished her investigation. She had made her decision. Daniel would be brought before the entire royal court for judgment. "What does that mean?" Daniel asked. "Am I going to be executed?" Zethros did not answer. His face was like stone, impossible to read. "Get dressed," he said simply. "The Queen is waiting." Daniel was given clean clothes and led through the palace corridors. His shoulder ached with every step, but he walked with his head held high. He was not ashamed of what he had done. Whatever happened next, he had made the right choice. The doors to the throne room opened, and Daniel stepped inside. Hundreds of Cytharians filled the chamber. Nobles in fine clothes, military officers in uniform, diplomats from distant worlds. They all watched in silence as the wounded human walked toward the throne. Queen Meredith sat waiting, her face as cold as ever. Beside her stood Vela, looking nervous and hopeful at the same time. Daniel stopped at the base of the throne and waited. His heart was beating fast, but his face remained calm. Whatever judgment came, he would face it with dignity. The Queen rose from her throne and began to speak. The throne room fell completely silent as Queen Marethis stood. Every eye was fixed on her, waiting to hear the fate of the human who stood before her. Daniel kept his back straight and his eyes forward. He would not show fear, no matter what came next. The Queen's voice filled the chamber. It was strong and clear, reaching every corner of the vast room. For generations, we have been taught to fear humans. We have heard stories of their violence, their aggression, their unpredictable nature. We have been told they come from a death world, a planet so harsh and cruel that only the most dangerous creatures could survive there. We have kept our distance. We have closed our borders. We have treated them as enemies before they ever had a chance to be friends. She paused and looked directly at Daniel. Her silver eyes seemed to pierce right through him. I believe those stories. When my daughter went missing, when her transport was destroyed, I assumed she was dead. And when I learned that humans had brought her back, I assumed it was a trick. Some kind of scheme to gain power or wealth. Whispers moved through the crowd. This was not what anyone had expected. The Queen was admitting she had been wrong. That never happened. I spent 3 days searching for the truth, the Queen continued. I examined every piece of evidence. I watched every recording. I questioned the female human for hours, looking for any sign of deception. She took a step down from her throne. Then another. The crowd gasped. A queen did not descend from her throne for anyone. It had not happened in living memory. Do you know what I found? She asked. I found a man who heard a distress call from strangers and flew toward danger instead of away from it. I found a man who boarded a burning ship and fought pirates alone to save a child he had never met. I found a man who shared his food, told stories, and showed kindness to a frightened little girl who had been taught to hate his kind. She stopped in front of Daniel, standing just a few steps above him. The entire court held its breath. And I found a man who threw himself in front of an enemy's weapon to protect my daughter, who took a wound that nearly killed him, who kept flying and fighting until he knew she was safe, who refused medical treatment so that supplies could be saved for her. The Queen's voice softened. Something changed in her eyes. The coldness melted away, replaced by something warmer. Something human, Daniel thought. You asked for nothing, she said. You expected no reward. When my commander asked what you wanted, you said only that you hoped relations between our people could improve. Not for yourself. For everyone. She looked at the crowd around them. Nobles and officers who had spent their whole lives distrusting humans. Who had believed every terrible story they had ever heard. I was wrong, the Queen announced. We were all wrong. This man is not our enemy. He's the best example of what a living being can be. He showed more honor, more courage, and more compassion than any dozen of our own heroes combined. Then Queen Marethis did something that no one in that room would ever forget. She lowered her head in a deep bow of respect. The ruler of the Stharian Empire bowed to a human cargo pilot. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Some looked angry. Others looked confused. But many looked thoughtful, as if they were seeing the world in a new way for the first time. Vela was crying. Tears of joy rolled down her cheeks as she watched her mother honor the man who had saved her life. The Queen raised her head and spoke again. Daniel Carter, in the name of the Stharian Empire, I offer you our deepest gratitude. I offer you sanctuary in our space. I offer you citizenship in our empire, with all the rights and protections that come with it. She reached up and removed a small pendant from around her neck. It was a symbol of the royal house, made of crystal and silver. She placed it around Daniel's neck. And I grant you the title of Guardian of the Crown, a title that has never been given to any outsider in our history. You will be recognized and honored wherever you travel in our space. You will be protected as a member of the royal family. This is my word, and my word is law. Daniel stood in stunned silence. He had never imagined anything like this. He had expected prison, maybe execution. Not this. Never this. "Your Majesty," he said slowly, "I am grateful for your kindness. But I do not need titles or rewards. I am just a cargo pilot. All I ask is that my partner Laura be released, and that we be allowed to continue our work among the stars." The Queen smiled. It transformed her entire face, making her look younger and gentler. "Your partner has already been released. She's waiting for you at your ship. But I hope you will consider staying a while longer. There is much we could learn from each other." "And the relations between our people?" Daniel asked. "I will open formal diplomatic channels with human space," the Queen announced, loud enough for the entire court to hear. "We will send ambassadors. We will negotiate trade agreements. The walls we have built for generations will begin to come down. It will take time. There is much distrust to overcome. But every journey begins with a single step." She looked at Daniel with warmth in her eyes. "You took that step. You showed us what humans can really be. Now it is our turn to take the next one." The ceremony ended with cheers and applause. Not everyone was happy. Daniel could see that. Some faces in the crowd were dark with anger. Change would not come easily, but it would come. That was enough. Vela ran to Daniel and hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything?" "Thank you for trusting me," Daniel said. "When you took my hand on that ship, that was the bravest thing I have ever seen." Laura was waiting at the Starlight Drifter, just as the Queen had promised. She looked tired but happy. When she saw Daniel walking toward her, alive and free, she laughed with relief. "I thought they were going to execute us both," she admitted. "So did I," Daniel said with a grin. "I guess we got lucky." They prepared the ship for departure. As the engines warmed up, Daniel looked out the window at the palace. On a high balcony, he could see two figures watching them. Vela and her mother, standing side by side. Vela waved. Daniel waved back. The Starlight Drifter lifted off and rose toward the stars. Behind them, the first human ambassador was already on his way to the Stethurian homeworld. A new chapter in history was beginning. Daniel set course for the next job, the next delivery, the next adventure. He was still just a cargo pilot. But now he knew something important. Sometimes one person could change everything. All it took was the courage to help when help was needed. And that was something humans had always been good at.